Well, that January transfer window was certainly interesting, weren't it, Blades fans? Should we delve into it? Yes, guys, welcome to Blades Focus. I'm Brett, and like I mentioned in the intro, we're going to delve into the January transfer window. First of all, I want to say a massive thank you for the support so far on the channel. It's been immense. Obviously, I'm only at the start of my journey, but I want to keep growing, keep learning. And I suppose if you're watching this now, you can say you've been watching since the start. Obviously, in this video, as January's been and gone, I'll go through all the ins and the outs and see what I think of them. In the January window, there was a total of 7 players who left the club and 5 that came in. Obviously, one of them 5 that came in is a contract extension, not a new signing, but I'll get onto that. We didn't actually sell any players permanently in the January transfer window, only some loans and some terminated loans. So for the outs, I'm going to go through each individual club and the player and see if it's the right fit. We're going to start with the outgoings. Of course, 2 loans were terminated at the start of January. One of them, of course, being Ben Godfrey, who was on loan from Atalanta. I mean, where do I start with this guy? On the pitch, he was god-awful. Of course, he was signed as right-back cover to Femi Siriki, but he didn't really play very well. Of course, the game that stands out is Ipswich away, where he got absolutely a ton of new one by Philogene. After that game, he barely played again. Of course, he played in the under-21s. There was some sort of issue between him and Wilder. It was deemed some sort of personal issue. He was in the under-21s, but he weren't playing for the first team. I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but there's been some sort of speculation about his time at Sheffield United. I'm not going to go into that in this video. He's now on loan at Bromby in the Danish League, of course, managed by Steve Cooper now. Obviously, as a player, wasn't up to the standards of Sheffield United at all, but I wish him well as a person and a player. And the second player whose loan was terminated was Louis Barry from Aston Villa. Similar to Ben Godfrey, had very limited minutes on the pitch. He wasn't very good at all. In a United shirt, he just never really got going. Of course, he played a few games. He wasn't really special. I had such high hopes for him because he was brilliant at Stockport. I'd followed his career for a few years now, and I'm sure half the Championship, if not more, after this guy in the summer on loan, but we managed to get him. He only played a handful of times. He didn't do anything really on the pitch. Of course, he was sent back to Aston Villa at the start of January. He's now on loan at Stockport. This is his 3rd loan spell at Stockport, of course successful in the other 2. And of course, linking up with former Blades Ben Osborne and Ollie Norwood, so we wish him well. The first player loaned out is Sam Curtis, who went to Chesterfield. We picked Sam Curtis up a couple of years ago from the League of Ireland. He's really high rated over there. And he's been on the fringe of the first team at times, but he's not really broke into the team. And over the past couple of seasons, he had a couple of loan spells at St Johnstone and Peterborough. That didn't go too well. I haven't seen the Chesterfield games, but based on the football rating, I think he's done alright in his first few games. And to top it off, he scored on his debut against MK Dons away. Hopefully this is a good building block for Sam Curtis in League 2, a different level, as I think there's definitely a talent and a player in there, you just need to unlock it. Next up is Louis Marsh, who's gone on loan to Falkirk in the Scottish Premiership. He's a player that's born and bred in Sheffield, been on the fringes of the first team for a few years now, never broke out. He's had a couple of loan spells that haven't worked out. He's always been highly regarded in the youth academy. He's had a couple of loan spells before at Doncaster and Fleetwood where he hasn't really worked out. In his first few games, he's already got an assist for Falkirk, so whether he can bite the goals in, I'm not sure. Falkirk are a newly promoted team. They're doing quite well in the Scottish Premiership this season. And I think in terms of development, it's a good league to go to. It's got a good mix between bad teams and good. Because when you go to a bad league, as a player, you know you're going to do well, you're not going to struggle. And it doesn't really help you grow as a player. Obviously, you know you're capable at that level, not another level. But I think the Scottish Premiership is a good balance between good and bad. The next player out on loan is Ukaki to Atromitos in Greece. It was one of the signings made by AI in the summer. It didn't go well, did it? I mean, he's one of the only ones that actually played a game for the first team, of course, playing that cup game against Birmingham. And let's be honest, he was nowhere near the level. I'm not going to sit here and say I know too much about him or the team that was going to in Greece. I think it's a smart move loaning these players out instead of selling them all straight away because you don't know what they could turn into. I mean, you never know, he could do alright in the Greek league, come back a better player or get sold. Because ideally we want to up his transfer value before we do eventually sell him. The last player that went out on a straight loan is Ryan One to Lincoln. I think it's a brilliant move for One to be fair because Lincoln are flying high at the top of League 1. They're sitting 2nd in the league at the moment, comfortably in the automatic places. And I did a video on my TikTok talking about this, why it's the right fit for the player and the club. In terms of an out-and-out number 9, they've struggled for goals this season from that position. I think Ryan One brings that to the team. Of course, Michael Scabala knows how to develop young talent. He was at Leeds under 21s a couple of years ago. And Lincoln themselves have history with young players such as Brendan Johnson and Morgan Rogers a couple of seasons ago. And if you look what they've turned into, you can only imagine what Ryan One could turn into. Overall, for Ryan One and his ability, I think League 1 is a perfect level for him. And it's always nice to loan a player to a team near the top of the table, not the bottom. Because teams near the bottom of the table struggle to create chances, but I don't think Lincoln are that at all. So hopefully he goes there, smashes it and further continues his development. The final player we sent out on loan with an option to buy is Nils Zetterstrom to Genoa. And this is such a weird deal because he signed in the summer from Malmo, never really given a chance. And if Genoa activated that buy option, we could make a profit on him. But I think he's been harshly treated at United, not given a chance at all, even in a cup game. And of course Genoa are a Serie A side, so if he can get a game for them, why can't he get a game for us? Of course with your young players, it's all speculation. It could be a world beater, he could end up in League 2 in 10 years. But I think he's been very harshly treated and very harsh to be sent off without giving a chance. Like I said, it's all hindsight. In 5-10 years I could sit here and be wrong or right, I don't know. I mean, in 5-10 years he could be playing for Barcelona or playing for Barnsley. Moving on to the incomings now, like I mentioned, it's 5-1 contract extension. The first signing we made in the transfer window is Keanu Hoover from Wolves. Of course this was for right back cover, no option to buy, just a straight loan until the end of the season. And he's had a patchy start so far, he's shown glimpses when he'd come off the bench or he started a game. But I think it's going to be hard for him to break into the team towards the end of the season because Femi Siriki's been incredible this season. But with the absence of Ben Godfrey, we didn't really have an out-and-out right back that could replace Femi Siriki if he did get injured. So I think addressing that situation very early on was proactive from Wilder and the board. course, the next bit of business we did was tying down Patrick Bamford to a new 18-month contract. And my word, what a player he's been since he signed for the club in November. He's played 14 times for the Blades so far, scoring 7 goals, been an absolute revelation since he signed. When he first signed in November, me and a lot of other fans were quite sceptical, but he's definitely proved us wrong. Of course, our upturning form started really when he signed, so it shows he's been a big part of it. And it's been confirmed in the last couple of days it'll miss 2 or 3 weeks of action with an injury, so hopefully it's not too serious. And I think it'll be a biggish miss because he's been an impactful player this season. And then we'd signed 3 more players on deadline day, the first of them being Leo Helder. He signed on a straight loan from Sunderland until the end of the season. Of course, this signing was really forced on us due to injury of Sam McCallum at Millwall. Because with Burrows and McCallum, we were sorted at left back, and then that injury changed everything. We made that signing early enough to get his debut against Oxford. He was solid, to be fair, off the bench. Hopefully the Blazers can get some valuable game time because he struggled with injuries the last couple of seasons. And I don't think it's one of them loan deals that works for all parties, really. The second sign of deadline day, and arguably the biggest, was Calvin Phillips on loan from Man City. Once again, this one's a straight loan deal until the end of the season, no option to buy. And when I first heard this rumour on deadline day, I was absolutely gobsmacked. Because I heard there was interest from other European teams in the Premier League, so I was like, why would he come to United? But then the deal progressed very quickly, signed at the end of deadline day. I think the best thing about this is Man City cover a large portion of his wages, so I suppose that brings the risk of it down just a bit, because I think it is a risk signing whether he can get up to fitness and match speed, because he's only played about 7 minutes in the Cup this season for Man City. He's had a couple of failed loan spells with West Ham and Ipswich in the Premier League, didn't go too much to plan. So we'll be looking at this move in the Championship to try and reignite his career. And I think if we can get him firing, he's an absolute top-end Championship player. I'm really excited to see him make his debut to fair, see what he can do with the team. Because it's only 4 or 5 years ago, his England men's player of the year, bossing it with Leeds in the Premier League and the Championship. So if we can get some sort of form back from him, he'd be absolutely brilliant in the Championship. And the final player that we signed in this window, and the only permanent, is Joe Rothwell. I've heard a lot of rumours that he's a free transfer, not necessarily for a fee. He signed for the Blades on an 18-month contract, of course, late on deadline day. And once again, like Phillips and Hjelde, he's a former Leeds player. Of course, for Rangers, it hasn't gone to plan this season, but for Leeds last season, it was absolutely amazing. He was a key player for Leeds in that title-winning season last year in the Championship. And he's a very experienced player in this league, playing for Blackburn, Southampton and Leeds. And we have got quite a young core of the squad, so I think bringing a couple of experienced heads, especially midfield, is a brilliant move. And we've got a ton of options in that midfield now, such as Phillips, Rothwell, Davies, Arblaster, Peck and Riedewald. And once again, I'm quite excited to see what it can bring to the group. And there we go, guys, that's everything that happened in the January transfer window. And I think one of the main talking points is we actually didn't sell anyone such as Brooks, Sariki, Harmer or Peck. Of course there was interest in January, but to keep them for the second half of the season is massive. And you never know, if we keep up this form, we could be looking at the top end of the table, not the bottom. I think playoffs is quite unlikely, but you never know with this table, it's a Championship after all. All we can hope for is just finishing as high as possible in this league. As always, thanks for watching this video, leave this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.